Hey guys, Sean Terry here, Flip2Freedom.com. Beautiful day out here today. So let's talk about Earnest Money Deposit, EMD, right? There's a lot of questions about how much you should do, what happens if you get countered for a higher EMD amount, and all about that. So I wanted to do a video real quick to explain that. So first off, 95% of our deals that we do a $100 earnest money deposit, $100. That's it, 95%. There is a select few deals that will warrant a higher earnest money deposit, meaning the seller will essentially counter. They're going to want to have a higher earnest money deposit. So what do you do if you have a seller that says, hey, you're going to put more earnest money down on the contract? So what do? Well, here's what we do. First off, you got to make sure that you have levels of protection when it comes to, what's up, kiddos? What's up? So level of protection when it comes to your out clauses, right? So what we do is we make sure that we have significant levels of out clause. First off, we want to have an inspection period that's 30 days, right? 30-day inspection period, number one. So you can put a higher earnest money deposit like $1,000 or $3,000 or even $5,000 earnest money deposit, as long as you have protection to potentially, so you can get that EMD back. So we'll do a 30-day inspection period. The second thing what we'll do is say contract subject to financial partners approval. That's another layer of out clause that you can then get out of the contract and you can get your earnest money back. The third thing is you can say in a default section of the contract, you can say earnest money is liquidated damages. So you can relinquish the earnest money as liquidated damages. Now, you don't want to do that if you have a high amount of earnest money, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, whatever that number is. You don't want to do that. So I would essentially make sure I had the two other out clauses that are saying financial subject to financial partners approval or the inspection period. Those will get you out of the contract. Now, what we do is we have that default language in there that that they will relinquish earnest money deposit as a liquidated damages for in the event of a default, because typically earnest money is low at $100, right? So what happens is a lot of sellers are going to come back because they're going to talk to a realtor, they're going to talk to a friend and say, hey, they need to have more earnest money. Now, if a seller says, hey, I want more earnest money and I want you to put a 5-day inspection period on the property, and I want you to eliminate the clause, your out clause is subject to financial partners approval, then what do? Well, first off, number one, you're at risk. That means if you put anything more than $100, anything over that, even that $100 is at risk, right? So you put $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, whatever the number is, that is at risk after the 5 days. On the 6th day, you will lose that earnest money if you can't get the property sold to a potential buyer. So here's what we do in that type of situation. It has to be a smoking deal. It has to be such a smoking deal that you're 1,000% confident that you can get the deal done. Now, I'm assuming obviously most people watching this are real estate wholesalers. In our particular case, if someone asks for a higher EMD, we're going to negotiate the best price possible. We'll just close on the property, turn around, fix it up real, and stick it back on the market if it's such a smoking deal. But if you don't have the ability to do that, to close on it, then you have to make sure it's an absolute smoking deal. If you eliminate all your out clauses, you only give yourself a 5-day inspection, and then you have a high earnest money, then you could potentially lose that earnest money. The second deal I ever did, it's so stupid. Second deal I ever did, it wasn't a smoking deal. They wanted $1,000 earnest money, and they wanted me to give them the earnest money instead of bringing it to the title company. Always make sure that your earnest money goes to a title company, which is essentially a third party managing the transaction, right? So what I did, they wanted the earnest money delivered to them. So I met them at their house. I got a cashier's check, and I made the cashier's check to the seller. Huge mistake. Never do that. Ever do that. I did that, right? Second deal. Then they had me take out all my out clauses, no inspection period, no contract subject to partner's approval, no default language, right? I had to buy the property. And I was so excited. I just wanted to get the deal done. I got confident and cocky, because I got my first deal done. I was like, hey, I can do my second deal, no problem. This deal could have potentially put me out of business. Anyways, the bottom line is they wiped out all my clauses. I gave them $1,000 EMD, and luckily, a couple days before closing, I happened to find a buyer, and I made like $2,000 on the deal. And luckily, I got out of that deal. I signed the contract. They closed on it. They fixed it up and sold it. But that literally was totally by the grace of God to get out of that deal, because if I wouldn't have found that buyer, and I didn't have a buyer's list or any of that type of stuff, they could have literally sued me, and they would have sued me for specific performance on that property. So never give the seller EMD. Never eliminate your out clauses unless you're prepared to close on the transaction, buy it, but it's got to be an absolutely smoking deal for you to be able to commit to make that happen. So as a recap, first off, never give the seller EMD. Always 90% of the time, 95% of the time, it's $100. If they want more, it's got to be a smoking deal, number one, and you've got to have all your out clauses. If they make you eliminate your out clauses, on that situation, then it's got to be an absolutely smoking deal. You got to be prepared to close on that transaction. And if you're not prepared to close on it, then do not sign the deal. Walk away from the transaction. Get the terms that you want. There'll always be another deal. There's always going to be another deal around the corner. I always think, when I first started, that this was the only deal. I have to do whatever I have to do to make this thing work. There'll always be another deal. Now, thousands and thousands of deals later, I can tell you, there'll always be another deal. Don't risk your entire business. Don't risk your entire livelihood on one specific deal, because I'm telling you, there's always another deal. So hope this helps about EMD. I know I got a ton of questions about it. Awesome. Have an amazing, blessed day. I'm headed to the gym. Talk to you soon. God bless.